In his short 12-year career, Marc Bolan achieved 4 British number ones, 3 number 1 LPs, with record sales topping 60,000 a day. He lived the iconic rock and roll dream.
Marc has left a canon of work that any 29-year-old would be very proud of.
He was Elvis, he was Cliff, he was Jimi Hendrix. He was the lot rolled into this strange new package.
Boys liked him because they wanted to be like him. And of course, girls wanted to sleep with him.
He knew what he wanted, and I think he just went for it. And it was all very instinctive, I think.
He saw himself maybe as possibly a reincarnation of some bard or some wizard that lived in the time when elves walked the earth. It's okay with me.
Marc Bolan in 3 words: magic, magnetic, alive.
I always wanted to be a teenage idol. I think every person wants to be. It's lovely to be worshipped and all that, as long as it's real.
Let's jump the generation gap and greet Marc Bolan.
He was the archangel of glam rock, the poet with a Gibson Les Paul, a self-invented star who fused mysticism with rock and roll. But behind the eyeliner and electric strut was a boy from North London, born into modest beginnings and possessed with an almost feral hunger for fame. Marc Bolan didn't just want to be a pop star, he wanted to be immortal. For a brief incandescent moment, he was both. Marc Bolan was born Mark Feld in Stoke Newington, London, in September 1947, the younger of 2 sons in a working-class Jewish family.
The family home was in North London, opposite Stoke Newington Common, where he and brother Harry often played.
His father, a lorry driver, and his mother, who once ran a market stall, didn't come from privilege, but they recognized early on that their son was different. Marc was precocious, obsessed with music, clothes, and the cinema. He idolized Gene Vincent and Chuck Berry, and he mimicked their moves in front of mirrors, long before he ever set foot on a stage.
I think it was when he was 11, my mum bought him a guitar off the back of a newspaper. He had no professional tuition. He just strummed away to it till he taught himself how to play a guitar.
He was, by his own admission, a dandy even as a boy, dressing with flamboyance and flair, trailing around London in modish suits and Cuban heels.
I mean, Marc was the only person I know that when I came to school, age 11, 12, 13, he'd be wearing handmade suits, you know, from tailors from the East End.
Precociously young, but immaculately dressed in, top mod kind of gear, everything carefully, the exact amount of buttons, the button-down shirt, the vents at the back. I mean, whatever it took to make him look different.
He was the face, he was the catalyst of this whole new era that was coming through of guys trying to be very fashionable.
School bored him. Authority frustrated him.
On any given Friday, if he didn't fancy going to play games, he would say to me, "Come on, Richard, just get out of here." I said, "Okay." We used to play truant, and we used to go down to the West End, to Berwick Street Market.
He left formal education at 15, and the rest was self-styled mythology.
He wasn't interested in school, and in the end, the school agreed with him, and they just let him go his own way.
I left school at 14, I was expelled.
Why were you expelled?
Well, it was very amicable. I just didn't think they were teaching me the things I wanted to know, so I didn't go too much in the end. Played truant all the time.
He tried his hand at modelling, turned up in a few teen magazines, and briefly studied acting at the City Literary Institute, but it was always the music that drew him in. He started out on the folk circuit under his birth name, then as Toby Tyler, before finally settling on Marc Bolan. The name was his own invention, part homage to Bob Dylan, part theatrical flourish.
Styled himself as a Dylan-style folkie for a while. Also, it was quite easy to do. If you knew 3 chords, you could bash out a folk song.
He signed to Decca in the mid-60s and released a couple of solo singles, but they fell flat.
Must a man walk down before you can come?
Despite an early appearance on TV pop show Ready, Steady, Go, the Wizard single flopped, and Marc decided on a new approach.
The swinging London scene was saturated with aspiring stars.
Also, he realised what was happening at the time. There was a whole new movement growing on the underground where you could kind of take control yourself a little bit, a whole new network of clubs.
Bolan stood out visually, but musically, he hadn't found his voice. Not yet. That voice began to emerge in 1967 with the formation of Tyrannosaurus Rex, a psychedelic folk duo featuring Bolan on guitar and vocals, and Steve Peregrine Took on assorted percussion.
And for the name of the group, he remembered a line from one of the science fiction books he'd read as a boy, and Tyrannosaurus Rex was born.
Their songs were acoustic, eccentric, and steeped in fantasy. Fairies, unicorns, druids, all delivered in Bolan's high, quavering tones. Critics didn't quite know what to make of it, but the underground took notice.
I opened up the International Times. The first thing I saw was Tyrannosaurus Rex playing at Middle-earth. That evening I went to see them. As I walked down the stairwell, I heard the sound of Tyrannosaurus Rex coming up towards me, and it was a beautiful sound. It was kind of rock, psychedelic, but it was two people playing acoustic music.
BBC DJ John Peel became an ardent supporter, playing their songs relentlessly and inviting them onto his show.
Marc decided to go out and form his own little group, just the two of them, and he sings very gentle, soft little songs, and one of them's playing right now in the background, and it's very beautiful.
John Peel fell in love with Tyrannosaurus Rex and would play their records on the radio to the point of annoyance to many listeners, and was very supportive and helped break them.
John Peel was probably Marc's best friend at the time, besides me. We were the only two people who really knew that Marc was going to be enormous and take off, maybe from slightly different angles.
Tyrannosaurus Rex released 4 albums between 1968 and 1970, each one increasingly confident, but still utterly removed from mainstream pop.
Songs were flowing out of Marc so much so that a second album was released in October 1968, with the third album only 7 months later.
Bolan's lyrics read like patchwork spells, half Tolkien, half teenage diary. He was writing in code, turning his inner world into verse, and his audience, though niche, hung on every word.
He knew people would get stoned and listen to his records. He said, I'm going to do this little lick, I want you to get this sound, or this has to go a little psychedelic for the heads. He had to make sure that that layer was in the production where people could smoke a joint and listen to his records and go, yeah, that's cool, man.
But Bolan was restless. He began yearning for a bigger sound, for choruses that soared, for something louder, more visceral. The acoustic strumming no longer satisfied him, and more importantly, it no longer sold records.
But after 2 years and 3 albums, all was not well in the group.
Steve did the unspeakable thing. He said, I want to do some of my songs. That will always break up a group.
In 1969, he replaced Steve Took with Mickey Finn, a percussionist more willing to play the sideman.
Mickey Finn was brought in almost immediately after Steve Peregrine Took left. June and Marc held auditions. They put an advert in the Melody Maker, and June phoned me up and said, we found someone who's perfect. He's so good looking. And I said, well, can he play? June said, well, he's not a great singer, but he looks like Steve in a way. He's got the long hair, but he's better looking. And, quite honestly, I don't even think the fans will notice the changeover, which I thought was hilarious.
Bolan began introducing electric guitar into their sets.
I've been playing the electric guitar for a while, and I was beginning to feel some sort of liquidness with my mental outlook and the guitar. I wasn't getting enough out of the acoustic guitar anymore.
By 1970, the transformation was complete. Tyrannosaurus Rex had become T-Rex, and the songs were no longer fey campfire tales. They were stomping, swaggering rock tunes dipped in glitter and leather.
The music has become much, much more rhythmic because Mickey is a very different sort of percussionist. He also plays tablas and sort of Indian drums.
Yeah.
But again, as I said, the rhythm section before was always very loose. Now we're very, very tight. Musically, it's much, much tighter rhythm.
The turning point came with Ride a White Swan. A 2-minute gem of a song, it was simultaneously archaic and modern, an incantation set to a boogie rhythm. It caught fire on the charts, peaking at number 2. Suddenly, Bolan was a pop star, a teen idol, and a media darling.
And we released that just like we released the 6 previous singles. I get a phone call, and we couldn't believe it. She said, "Your record's number 2." That was it. Our lives changed from that moment.
He appeared on Top of the Pops with glitter on his cheeks and feathers in his hair.
It's something to behold. It's a fantastic record.
To a generation just emerging from the come-down of the 60s, he was something new, deliberately artificial, shamelessly theatrical, and irresistibly catchy. The hits kept coming. Hot Love, Get It On, Jeepster. Rextasy had begun.
It looked like typeset on fire. Rextasy.
It was an amazing time. I mean, every single newspaper had a picture of Marc Bolan on the cover, on the inside. There were interviews. And now the same DJs who ignored him 2 years earlier were now playing his records non-stop.
Teenage girls screamed in the streets. Boys started wearing makeup. Glam rock was born.
Marc had reinvented himself from the whimsical acoustic sound of Tyrannosaurus Rex with a solid yet small audience to the heights of #1 records with a new audience of teenagers, becoming the teenage idol he had always so desired.
Bolan didn't invent the genre single-handedly, but he embodied it with such commitment and style that he became its definitive figure. David Bowie was watching closely. So were Roxy Music and Slade. But none had yet captured the mainstream with the same force. 1971's Electric Warrior was the high watermark. A near-perfect record, it mixed primal riffs with cosmic lyricism, lust with magic. Songs like Cosmic Dancer and Life's a Gas showcased Bolan's melodic gifts and emotional depth.
What's it like to be alone now? Life's a gas.
He wasn't just a pop star, he was a pop auteur. He played lead guitar, wrote every song, and controlled the aesthetic of T-Rex down to the smallest detail.
We were selling something like 50 to 60,000 singles a day. I mean, people would now love to sell 60,000 singles in all. We knew it. We knew how to make hit records. That was confirmation, and we were loving every minute of it.
In The Slider, released the following year, he went further. More strings, more studio sheen, more self-aware glamour. Metal Guru topped the charts, and Telegram Sam kept the momentum going.
I've always been a better electric guitarist than I was an acoustic guitarist anyway. And I just wanted people to know that. Had I not done what I'm doing now, had I stuck with Tyrannosaurus Rex, I'd end up like Cat Stevens, which is not what I want to be.
At his peak, Bolan was everywhere. On magazine covers, on chat shows, on tour posters and lunchboxes. He released hit singles at a breakneck pace, often 2 or 3 a year, backed by albums that blurred the line between rock and spectacle. But fame is a cruel mistress. By 1973, the music press had begun to turn. The critics who once fawned now sneered. The same makeup and mystique that once felt revolutionary began to seem frivolous. And Bolan himself was starting to feel the strain.
When Marc found fame, I think, you know, he was on top of the world and at the top of his game. I think the shine started to come off fairly soon, though. I mean, he started to sort of celebrate with the fruits of all the fame as well. All the hobnobbing with the stars, all the champagne, all the cognac, all the cocaine, which was kind of becoming a staple diet of rock and rollers at that time. That really, I think, was the beginning of the downfall as well. It didn't take too long before that started to bite.
Behind the scenes, there were problems. He had begun drinking heavily. Cocaine became a fixture. He gained weight, lost focus, and grew paranoid. His marriage to June Child, his former publicist and longtime partner, began to fall apart. He had affairs, most notably with American soul singer Gloria Jones, who would later become the mother of his only child. His music began to suffer.
Now, the few times that Marc left June, he jumped into an affair with another woman. And I was guilty twice of introducing him to women.
1974's Zinc Alloy and the Hidden Riders of Tomorrow was an ambitious, sprawling attempt to fuse glam with soul and funk, but it confused his audience and alienated radio.
Marc used to say, you know, being in rock and roll and being famous was like riding a big Tyrannosaurus Rex, and you had to be very careful that it didn't turn around and chop your head off.
The following albums continued the decline. Bolan's ego remained intact, but his influence was waning. Glam itself was dying, overtaken by the raw energy of punk. For a time, Bolan was a man out of step, mocked by the very press that once crowned him king. But he was never one to stay down for long. In 1976, a revitalized Bolan emerged, leaner, cleaner, and with something to prove. He embraced the punk scene, recognizing in it the same defiant energy that had once fueled his own rise. He became friends with The Damned and Generation X.
This is a new group called Generation X, who have a lead singer called Billy Idol, who's supposed to be as pretty as me. We'll see now. Generation X.
1, 2, 3.
He played small clubs again, talked openly about his mistakes, and made a concerted effort to reconnect with the public. That same year, he reunited with producer Tony Visconti and recorded Dandy in the Underworld, an album widely seen as a return to form. The title track was self-referential, melancholic, and defiantly proud.
Gypsy explorer of the New Jersey Heights, exalted companion.
The old swagger was back, but tempered with reflection. He was, for the first time in years, relevant again. In 1977, he landed his own television show, simply titled Marc. It was chaotic, underfunded, and at times amateurish, but it was also authentic. Bolan introduced punk bands to a mainstream audience, gave them space to perform, and shared the spotlight willingly. In the final episode, he welcomed David Bowie onto the stage. The two pioneers embraced, laughed, and performed together. It was a moment heavy with meaning. Glam had come full circle. Just days later, on the 16th of September, Marc Bolan died. He was a passenger in a Mini driven by Gloria Jones. The car skidded on a curve in Barnes, struck a tree, and killed him instantly. He was just 29 years old. The tree still stands, an unlikely shrine for fans, adorned with messages and memorabilia. His death was sudden, but not senseless. Marc Bolan left behind a body of work that continues to influence, inspire, and ignite. His songs, filled with mystery and rhythm, still sound fresh today. He gave rock music permission to be flamboyant, to be fabulous, to be fun. He made the electric guitar a wand, not a weapon. In his final years, Bolan often spoke of legacy. He knew what he meant to people. He once said, "I don't want to be remembered for being dead. I want to be remembered for living." And live he did, in Technicolor, with glitter on his cheeks and poetry on his tongue. Marc Bolan wasn't just a star. He was a supernova. Brief, bright, and unforgettable.
Marc Bolan in 3 words: magic, magnetic, alive.
Talent, Generosity. Sexy.
Beautiful. Profound. Spiritual.
Marc was realistic. Marc was clever, but he had a lot of love. He was of love.